Hello, everybody. How are you? It's a very, very blowy day today where I am. And I hope that we're not going to suddenly go dead because my electricity has vanished. But I'm delighted to be here at the ABOO lunchtime learning session today with the wonderful RAMITA Anand. So RAMITA is a mentor of young girls, and she comes, quite unusually, really, from an educational background. She has worked in schools, which I think is a really different approach. Would that be? Do you think that's true, Ramita? Are you quite unusual as a mentor of teenage, adolescent girls?
I think there aren't as many as we'd like to hope that there were out there helping girls specifically with the skills that I want to try and instill. Yes, I think that is unusual.
That's great. So tell us a bit about yourself.
Sure. Yeah. Hi, everyone. It's an absolute treat to be here. Thank you, Lucy, for inviting me onto this chat. It's been really nice to be taking part into something, and you're my very first opportunity to talk about Girl Elevated and a little bit about myself. So thank you very much for having me. I'm a trained teacher from Vancouver. I am a mum of two, almost 15 and almost 12. And I have had the luxury and the privilege of working in Canada, in New York, in Singapore, and mostly in London, which is where I am back now. So I feel very lucky that I've been able to draw on a lot of my experience throughout different places I've lived and worked to be able to come up with a program that I have, which I can talk to you a little bit more about as we get through the presentation, but I want to try and help lift our young girls in this tricky time of pre-adolescence and into their adolescent years. It's really what I'm hoping to do.
That's such a wonderful mission. I mean, as the mother of two daughters who are sort of out of their teens now, but it's such an important thing, and your book is wonderful.
Oh, thank you. It's really kind of you. So I'll talk a little bit about what I hope to achieve with the book and the program. I have got a few slides that I've prepared.
Yeah, please do share them. That's great.
I'll just put those out 1 second if I can remember how to do that. There we go. Hopefully you can all see that. So yes, Elevate RA is essentially a mentoring service. And what I really wanted to talk about was the idea around, and when I will talk about that today, is the idea around education for young girls that isn't necessarily achieved within the school curriculums. No fault of schools at all. I think they're doing a very, very good job of trying to handle so many things around academic pressure, but those crunch years, those very stressful times in adolescence, right before they get into real teen drama and issues in high school, I think are really as important, but sometimes overlooked. And those are the middle years. I think in America and in Canada, that's a term that we use a lot there. So it's called the middle school years that I really wanted to focus on, because my experience, as Lucy mentioned earlier, in schools has been with Key Stage 2, which is what they call that, the upper primary years in England. So my whole topic today will be looking a little bit about myself, my background, which we've touched on. I will look at what parents are going through as much as what the children are going through. So I think it's really important, as a mum myself, who's in the thick of it all right now with a teenage girl, to relay that I do understand where so many parents come from and where some of their concerns arise. And then I would love to talk about what Elevate is trying to instill in our young girls. I like to call these my 5 superpowers. And I know they're referred to as soft skills by many people, but I don't think they're soft. I think they're really important. And I think they're, as Simon Sinek once referred to these skills, which I'm going to refer to as my superpowers, as human skills. And I think they probably are relevant for all of us to have. And then we'll talk about actually what's going on with young girls at this age and stage of their development, and why it's important to look for it, signs of ways to help them in preventative ways, and my vision really, and why this is for girls everywhere, particularly for girls who struggle with self-esteem, confidence issues because of some sort of difference and things that they might be saying. And we can look at some things that the parents have said about me before, or about the program in general and the book as well, which has been really nice to get so much beautiful feedback. I'm absolutely touched and honored to be sitting here working. And the beauty of my job is that I don't get to work with just the girls. I get this amazing relationship with the parents as well, who have a real testament to those parents that are so committed. And I think anyone listening to this will say that it takes a village to raise these kids. And I think having that extra hand to help you there, guide you through it, means a lot to me, as much as it might help other parents. I think having partnership with parents has been a massively important thing in a learning curve for me as well. So I have done teaching in maths and science. I've been a department head of maths and science before I switched 6 years ago into teaching children with additional learning needs. And that's what, a lot of my interest in the last 5 or 6 years has been in neuroplasticity and looking at how we can rewire the brain and talk to kids about messaging and positive ways of thinking and growth mindset. And as I said before, I don't take this lightly. I am in it with you, so I have a lot of empathy for a lot of parents. I don't have all the answers, but I do have some experience, and I do want to be able to help more parents and carers out there if I possibly can. So what are some of the parenting woes? I think a lot of us face real concerns at this stage in growth, because I think what we don't talk about with parents is that we're at a stage of grief as well. We are losing our little babies, and they aren't staying. Those little people that relied on us so much, so heavily, 100% all the time, to their own little people, and they're developing into adults, where they're heading in towards adulthood, and it's happening just before their eyes, and they're not quite sure how to deal with that grief. And I think it's important to acknowledge that letting go and accepting the fact that you are also feeling a bit sad about losing your once baby is important. But mostly, I think what we worry a lot about is we want our children to fulfill their potentials, and we sometimes feel that they aren't doing that when they become teens, because they start to shift in their way of thinking, and their ability to respond to challenge and lots of other things start to diminish. And I think we assume, well, they're not doing their best, or they're lazy, or they're not working hard enough. And it's really important for us to think about how we can get them to be their best. Sometimes parents feel a lot of shame. A lot of us feel a lot of fear. And then we want to, we blame ourselves. Maybe we're scripting things from our own childhood, from our own expectations. We're bringing things into raising our daughters in a way that we were brought up. And we all know the world has changed in such a drastic way in the last few years. And we'll talk about why, but obviously the last 2 years in particular with the global pandemic, bringing on a whole heap of new challenge. And I think we don't know what to do, because it's such new territory for all of us. And there hasn't been a generation before us that has gone through the whole world of digitalization, of social media, and obviously now dealing with the way the world is working with the pandemic in full foresight. And then obviously feelings of, complete confusion and being deflated, because you're the child that you once knew, it has suddenly transformed or is changing, and you don't know why, and everything you've done with child X is not now working with this child, and you want to understand, what it is. And these feelings of deflation are so normal. So the one thing I want to say to all parents and carers listening today is, you are not alone. This is something that I hear time and time again, whether I'm in parent meetings, in workshops, in schools. This is something that we share in common all across the globe. So that's one thing to talk about. And then to really think about, why is this not, hang on, can I change my slide? Oh yeah. So why girls, and why am I interested in helping
So
girls?
RAMITA, I just want to butt in and say, that McCarraher says, oh yes, in capital letters. I relate to that grieving thing. My boy turns 16 and my girl turns 14 in the next few weeks. And I also, that was a real insight for me. Yes, I think that's so true. You suddenly lose that, you stop being that kind of mum, and you have to turn into a different kind of mum, and you've lost that relationship. I mean, obviously it's all good, but yeah, no, I just wanted to acknowledge that that's a really good point that I don't think we necessarily think about.
Exactly. And I don't think we give parents that space to allow that type of grief, because what happens is conflict arises, and nobody can understand why there's so much conflict. And really what it is that you haven't dealt with the feelings of your baby needing you 100% all the time, and now not, but still needing. And that's why the tween early adolescent stage is extra confusing, because they aren't 16, 17 driving out and doing their own thing on their own, taking the train and all of that, they still need you so much, but then they want so desperately be their own person, and they're looking what at the direction that they think they're headed towards, but they're not really equipped yet. So this is why I want to use this stage of pre-adolescence and early teen years to really equip the girls and set them up for success with the tools that I think that they will need to succeed. Again, why is my,
yes, okay. Michaela's just added, it's like you slide from hero status to so embarrassing before your eyes, and that's so true, isn't it?
Oh my goodness, Michaela, I'm right there with you. I have been told how embarrassing I am over and over again, and I used to be that mum that was I thought the cool mum in the playground with all the right snacks and all and things like that. Just having the right snack was always enough to cheer your little girl up at one stage, but now it's nothing or anything you say. I mean, just breathing can be an issue. So
indeed.
So really why I wanted to talk to you about girls at this age is because one of the things that I think and I'll just put these three things up there, but I will talk a little bit more about what's actually happening to young girls at between the ages of, puberty can start anywhere from 8. Some girls are saying 7, but I'm taking a global average around 9 and all the way up to 13, 14, generally. This is obviously a very general statement. There are 3 things that are going on. Their actual brain, which doctors and scientific evidence suggest that by the age of 6, those pre-formative years, which is sometimes why lots of parents of toddlers and teens sometimes relate to some of the same issues, that they're said, well, hey, hang on a second, I'm having a teen with a tantrum and a toddler having a different type of tantrum, but still having a tantrum. But because most of the brain has developed to 90 or 95% of the adult brain by the time you're age 6, but there's, 0 to 5 is such a crucial time of development of the brain, which we all know about. And then what happens in teenage years is this whole process called pruning. It's called, in lay terms, it's called use it or lose it. So a lot of the gray matter within the brain that isn't being used, the connections that are not being used so often, are being pruned away. And it's kind of called the back to front development of the brain, and the prefrontal cortex, which is the logical side of our brain, the part of the brain that makes the kind of rational decisions, is the last thing to develop in your teen years. And so what's happening is that teen girls are relying, and teen boys too actually, are relying on their amygdala, which is the emotional side of our brain, to make their decisions, which is the impulsivity, the aggression, the toing and froing, not knowing what's going on. And they're relying on the amygdala to make a lot of important decisions, which they're not thinking through because their logical side of the brain hasn't yet been developed. So I think that's the first thing to bear in mind, is that a lot of the things that our teens are doing, and which look completely irrational to parents, are not irrational to them because their actual body isn't developing at the rate that our brains have already developed. And then obviously they're going through puberty. So there's a huge change in hormones, and they don't know what to do with it. It can be overwhelming at times, and there's a very difficult way to deal with it. And often we forget that kids hold it together at school for 9, 6, 7 hours. And by the time they get home, they have run out of batteries, and the people they lash out on most are those that are closest to them. So you feel you're getting this terrible child brought home to you from school. It must be school, but actually they're doing their best. A lot of these girls do their best to stay as prim and proper as they can and hold it together as well as they can, so they don't lose it in front of friends and teachers and coaches. But then when they get home, it all kind of falls to bits because they run out of battery power. So having patience for them because of the changes in their hormones. And then the third thing that we have to keep in mind with girls in teen years is the fact that they want to form their own identities. They want to start being their own person, and they desperately want to be their own person away from their parents more than anything. So they're looking at ways to figure out who they are. And I think that's not new, but what is new is social media, and possibly the change in way we portray standards for girls. Perfectionism becomes a really big thing. And I think where they turn to and where they look to for advice on developing identity can be quite dangerous at the moment, because of how easily, readily, and frequently they are looking at images of what they think is the perfect body type, what they think is the perfect standard of beauty, what they think they need to achieve to get into the top schools. So the academic pressure, the sports pressure, the beauty pressure, then the popularity pressure. So some of these things were always there, even from the time when we were young kids, but it really wasn't part of the social media aspect of it, I think, is what's really new and probably the most challenging for all of us. And my whole take on this, and thinking about what I learned through my time at schools, was thinking about how can we try to offer kids and parents a solution. And I think one of the ways to do that is to develop some serious powers in our young girls, as I call them, the superpowers. And the five that the Elevate RA mentorship program looks at is confidence, self-belief, understanding your self-worth, and then looking at resilience. You know, why do we need to be able to deal with adversity, challenge, change when things go right? And I think in a world where things are so instant, you swipe something and you get it, you order something on Amazon and it arrives, and people are used to getting things so immediately that when something doesn't happen the way a child thinks, often that can create a totally different backdrop to their whole standard, and they start to see themselves as failure. And the word failure is a word I don't like, but it is something that is talked about a lot. And that fear of failure, I think I address a lot in resilience, and that's something I think that's really important. And then there's empathy, and being able to understand perspectives, understanding why one might think something differently to you. And that is hugely important, not just for yourself as a young girl, but in developing relationships, friendships, and then obviously work relationships, professional relationships, and romantic relationships with partners and things. Having empathy is a skill that I think will last you a lifetime. We talk a lot about IQ, especially when I work and live in North London. A lot of our young girls are sitting big tests and entrance exams, and IQ is something that's looked at a lot when they start thinking about what types of schools to stream these kids for or sit them for. But one of the most important types of intelligence, in my view, is emotional intelligence. And I'm not sure we do enough of that in getting our kids ready to deal with real life. And the one that I think sometimes is most undervalued but hugely important is kindness, and understanding how kindness works and what kind of things we can achieve through the ripple effect of being kind, not just to ourselves, but to others, and how that can enhance your quality of life, and how showing kindness to others, including your parents, teenage girls, can be a massively helpful thing for families and for you as a person to understanding relationships. So those are the 5 superpowers. And I wanted to talk a little bit more about how these can work all with the way that we rewire, and how we can talk to our kids about the fact that we are not formed as the people we are just because we are this way at 14 or 13 or 10, and that we can change and we can evolve, and we do change and we do evolve. But asking your children, where do you see yourself and how do you want to show up? What do you want to bring each day to your life? How do you want to enhance your day? And I think that that's an important thing, Lucy. I don't know if you would agree with whether or not we ask these questions a lot, because I think somewhere along the way, our priorities have gotten mixed up with ensuring that our report cards look a certain way, our trophy cabinets look great for all the medals that we award, win for different tournaments and sports things that our children are doing. But whether or not we ask them about what's the kindest thing you've done today, or what's the thing that you've done that has made you most proud of yourself, may not be so highlighted.
No, that's lovely. That's a really good question to ask people. I think there's also a question here. You kind of sort of spoke to teenage girls who might be watching this, but is it useful to show this presentation to our teen daughters? I'm worried if I do it. I'm worried if I do, it might give her an excuse for less desirable behavior or actions. And she might say, it was my amygdala that did it.
That's a great question and a really great point. And, I genuinely, hand on heart, can quote my own daughter, who has obviously listened to me give my Elevate talks in the past, said, well, Mummy, you're not really thinking this is what it is to raise a teen girl, And so I wouldn't put it past them. They're obviously would use that, and they may say that. But what I would love for you to show and role model, if you do share this presentation with teen girls, because I do want to invite them into the conversation, is role model that superpower of empathy. and try to show them that I understand what's going on with you, but you do have to take ownership. And there are consequences to your actions. So you may do something in the moment that has been caused by your amygdala, but what do we do once we have owned that behavior, or that if it wasn't, something that a parent would like their teenage daughter to exhibit that kind of behavior, then how can we stop it from happening again? And what are the things that I can do by showing you some empathy for your amygdala's kind of irrational thinking, so that in the next time you're faced with a similar situation, you might react differently?
That's a great answer. Perfect. Thank you.
A pleasure. So I hope, that is really what I would love for young girls to understand, is ownership, accountability, and obviously knowing that they aren't alone. So I think it's really important for them to know that they have an adult on their side. And I think it's really important for them to know that they aren't being criticized every time they're being pulled up on something. And so that's why this presentation is useful for parents, is to maybe pick your battles, choose when and if it's really worth having that conversation right now. And also the timing of how you do these conversations is really important. So if the child is already in a place of irrationality, you giving them any kind of logical advice in that moment isn't going to be well received. So it's best to let it go. It takes a lot of patience from mums and dads and carers and grandparents, but it is important to say, well, it's going to be wasted and it's just going to escalate into something that you don't want. So leaving it alone and coming back to revisit at a time when everyone else, and your daughter included, is calmer, is definitely the time to do that. And talking about the breath work and the oxygen being part of the growth mindset, and how we can change our way of thinking and then prevent our behavior from being repeated over and over again, is where we want to take our girls towards. And that is that self-confidence thing, because I think so many of our girls are looking for a validation externally, and they're looking for people to be on their side. They may not be their parents. They want it from their friendships. They don't want it from their mums and dads and their carers. So we might be bigging them up, and we might be thinking there's no reason for them not to have any great confidence in themselves. They've got everything. We believe in them. We tell them all the time how great they are, but they don't believe in themselves, because where they want that belief to come from is externally. And at the moment, it looks like the number of likes you get on a TikTok, the number of invites or chats that you're getting on your Snapchat. And so social media is having a whole extra layer of diminishing your self-esteem and allowing your children to feel less good about themselves. So the language that we use around building confidence and growth mindset skills is extremely important. And I think not shying away from the fact that adversity, challenge, change, friendship loss, all of that is part of being a resilient young teen. And it's okay to fall. And I think one of the things that we as parents do over and over again is that we're so used to wanting to keep our children protected that we don't often let them fall. And I don't think stopping them from falling is healthy. My view very much is giving them the skills on how to get back up. So that's really where the ideas around giving them skills around resilience comes into understanding that we will all fail at something, and we will all do badly at something, and we might have a miserable test result. We may not get the school we want. We may not make the team. We may not make the lead in the next play. There will be times where things will not go our way. How we choose to react to that, what we take from it, how we learn from it, and how we better ourselves from it is really what I want girls to try and rewire their brains with. So that kind of neuroplasticity side of it, and talking to themselves about their reactions and how we can control our reactions, even after we've had an adverse challenge, is really, really important, I think, at this point in our life as well. I'm keeping an eye on time, Lucy. Do let me know how I'm getting on, and if I should be skirting along quicker than I am.
This is all great, Ramita. Just keep going. It's brilliant.
Excellent. So, and the other thing I really, really wanted to talk about in terms of empathy is we are in a stage, and I think it's a brilliant time in the world that we're all acknowledging racial diversity, neurodiversity. We're talking about gender, sexuality. things in a way that we haven't probably in the past. I know I wasn't definitely spoken to about any of this with my parents, certainly not at school either. But I'm loving the fact that we're having these conversations in schools, in the media, there are television shows out there, but being mindful of how we teach our children to talk about these things, particularly at this age, because they themselves, when I said to you that one of the other things they're working out is their own identity, it's not just identity around what kind of person, what hobbies they like, or what subjects they want to take at A levels. It is, some of them are really working through their sexual identity, their gender identity, and we don't even know it. And they're, and they may not want to be sharing it. So just be really open to letting your kids that you love them unconditionally, no matter what they bring to you, so that they do keep those lines of communication open, I think would be extremely valuable. And instilling that from a young age. So not offering solutions, not offering scenarios, not giving them books straight away, letting them talk to you when they're ready, but always, always reassuring your teens that you are a source of support unconditionally. Whatever they might want to bring to you is something that you're not going to ever take off the table. So I think that's really important to talk about in terms of empathy, emotional intelligence. And then obviously I wanted to talk about mental health and what that's doing for our young teens. The stats are there. I don't want to say them over and over again because they are absolutely horrifying. You don't have to go very far to talk to another parent whose young girl is suffering from some sort of illness, whether it's self-harm, eating disorders, you name it, they're going through all sorts of things. And we are in a crisis. I don't think there's enough support out there for these young girls. And what we're doing is reactive. We wait till our girls get to a place of absolute despair. And I'm not saying that there's nothing but great things for therapy and for help and counseling, and that's important to such a huge degree. And I think we need to keep that up. But if we can think about doing this in a preventative way, I think we can really, really, really target some of the issues before. So I draw this parallel over and over and over again with preventative health and medical situations. We do all the things we can, not hoping that we're going to get sick and then fix ourselves once we're sick. We put in measures into our life with good eating habits, good exercise habits. Wellness around us at the moment is booming because we all understand the importance of keeping our physical body healthy. So in the same way, I think we should be doing preventative education. I think ensuring that our girls are developing the right skills, the right tools, the right language in order to hit the teen years so that they are already filled with all the right things that they can do. They can choose and make decisions at that time, which I hope will set them down a path that is set up for more success than detrimental. Because what I'm finding is that when they get to the years where life becomes a bit trickier and high school becomes a bit more complicated, that girls are choosing a more harmful way of dealing with problems than a positive, a preventative way. And so that is really what I really wanted to highlight today was preventative education, what we can do for girls now at this point in their life when all the stuff around them is changing. If we can inspect that foundation up for them and let them build their identity based on things like kindness and empathy and resilience, then I'm hoping that when they get to the ages of 15, 16, 17, and they're faced with bigger problems that we can't always be there for to help them with, because at that point we really have lost a lot of that control, that they will then choose the route that you'd want them to.
Right, that's wonderful.
So really that's why, and why would I want our children, this was a tiny little video of what I wanted to do in terms of working with a child, from keeping the child at the forefront. So I can play this little video for you. It's mostly
I'm not sure if we're hearing any sound on this.
Oh, really? Okay, we'll skip that. Don't worry. I don't think it's working. No worries.
I mean, I can see it looks great, but I can't hear any sound. I don't know if you can hear any sound in the group.
Don't worry, it's absolutely fine. I just really, it was a little background, a snapshot of the things I've done. Also, because I have a child who has autism, I spoke a little bit about that in the video with parents who have got a daughter with any kind of additional need or difference that makes her stand out at school and perhaps makes her teen years even more complicated. And these girls are more vulnerable to having issues around self-esteem, and I've been there with that. I'm going through that myself, and I understand the differences sometimes when you're in a playground or in a coffee morning or at a group with other mums. Sometimes having a child with difference can really make you feel a little bit isolated, and so I wanted to let you know that there are ways to support kids, even those that are struggling with other parts of it and not being able to keep up with their peers because they have an additional need, and how we can turn that into something that they can be proud of and own and use as a superpower instead of something to be ashamed of, embarrassed about, or nervous around, and having any anxiety around those issues. So that's another part of the program that I do have a huge amount of time for, because I do think that allowing other people, other kids in the class and other children in the community and parents and adults to respect kids with neurodiverse brains or neurodiversity or any other difference of any kind, disability, any kind, we will be raising girls that will be setting ourselves up for the future that we want, and the leaders that we want in the world around us. And then why do I think mentorship works? Why do I think having a program outside of doing this at home? I very much find this to be a three-way partnership. I do think that the girls are important. Obviously, they're the people right at the forefront of all of this. And then I do think that the parents are hugely important, because they are there to instill lots of this. We can send our kids to the best piano teacher and they can spend half an hour with that piano teacher. But unless that child comes home and practices that piano or that instrument, they're never really going to develop those skills to better themselves at it. So I believe the mentorship program is no different, really. I do think that I need the parents there and buying into the language, buying into the tools, having those posters around the house, books around the house that might help their daughters. But then I also think that a neutral adult, somebody who's not emotionally invested as a parent might be, somebody who is a force that is between the mum and dad or grandparents or whoever might be raising your daughter, as somebody who can be a neutral buffer, can be a really important thing. Often children don't think their parents understand. I don't know how many parents have heard that phrase, "you just don't get it." Well, they do think that, but sometimes if you've got someone like me or another teacher or a coach or whoever it might be that can act as that person that says, well, your mum wants to get it, so let's try and help your mum or your dad get it. How can we help your parents understand what you're going through? And actually, because I've worked in schools, because I've done this with X, Y, and Z, or because I've coached lots and lots of girls in tennis, I can tell your mum and dad what you're feeling, or I can empathize with what you're feeling, and maybe we can communicate that better with your parents. So I do think that makes a real difference. And also giving parents that extra reassurance and that helping hand that what they're doing isn't all bad or all good. What we sometimes think that it's two extremes. I think it's all social media. Got to take it away. The phone's going away, or I'm going to ban you from your, seeing your friends for the next 2 weeks. And I think because we get to the end of our tether, and we've tried lots of different things and we haven't got there. And I think having a neutral adult who's not there in it, can zoom out of what's going on in your day-to-day life and offer you these tips, can hopefully guide both child and parent through these tricky years and allow you some breathing space so that I can work on those tricky conversations with your child.
Great. That's so important, isn't it? Yes, I can think of many occasions where a neutral outsider could have held the balance between me and either of my daughters at times. And it's hard to say, look, I do get it, and they don't want to hear that, really.
No, they don't. And I think I draw a lot of my work on emotional intelligence from Mark Brackett, whose research in New York has been amazing. And they've, I think, put it in a lot of middle schools there, their whole program around dealing with. But he talks about having an uncle, or having he calls it the uncle, but that's the phrase I think he uses to talk about just an adult that isn't your mum or your dad, you know, just a safe space for you to go to turn to with questions, and being able to say, I'm feeling a bit frustrated today, I'm feeling really low today, this is what I really want to try, and but my mum doesn't get it or my dad doesn't get it. I think they want to get it. They really want to get it. That's the other thing to really relate to the young kids, is that they are on your side. And some of the framework that I use, the things that we use in the program, which is called the KWP, is hugely helpful in that, because I spend the first hour of the program trying to convince their little girls how much their parents are invested in their development, and otherwise they wouldn't be here. And we talk about all the strengths and all the positive things that we can bring out of your girl. And so we always start from a place of positivity.
That's fantastic.
And then really my vision really to see is the bigger picture for everyone. I would love is that we build a society where girl power is actually girl power in its truest sense, that we celebrate difference. The girls are not seen to be inferior to anyone, and that they learn to be smart, confident women who lead with compassion and kindness.
Well, that's yeah, absolutely. That's what we want for all our daughters, granddaughters, young women growing up now. It's just so important. It's all part of the process of getting women to have equal authority and credibility and confidence. So thank you so much for this, Ramita. It's been fascinating. So we'll put, obviously, we're going to put the link to your book in this post. Where else can people find you? And if they wanted to work with you or talk to you, what would be the best way to get in touch?
Absolutely, yeah. So my website is a great place to start. It's www.elevate-ra.com. I might actually put that slide up for you now.
Oh yeah, do.
I can do that there. Yeah, and then my Instagram is a great place at elevate.ra. You can message me on that, DM me on that. And LinkedIn is obviously always a great place to, and all my socials, I think I gave to you, Lucy, earlier, or Michaela might be able to share those with everybody.
Absolutely.
But my website's got everything on it, and absolutely feel free to drop me a line, drop me an email, get in touch, because I always love hearing from parents. I love hearing about what their girls are up to. And, you know, I do hope that the mentoring framework will help you build some confidence in your daughter's future. I do hope it will give you some ownership and some knowledge into what's going on in your children's life, and how you can put some thoughts into their progress planning and thinking about fulfilling their potential and helping them feel empowered and supported.
Oh, that's absolutely brilliant. And I'd certainly say read Ramita's book. That's got wonderful information and knowledge and insight in it. And so yeah, that's absolutely great. Thank you so much for your time today, Ramita. It is such an important thing to be parenting girls at this moment, such a difficult and such a vital role to be playing. So all the help that you've given to us today is very much appreciated. So thank you so much.
Oh, I'm grateful for the opportunity. It really is so lovely to be here. I hope it's offered some insight to anyone listening today. I hope the book will offer some more detailed information and give you some real strategies and tips on how you can implement some of these ideas into your day-to-day life. And just to say, hang in there, you know, we're all in it together, and I hope together that we can make the difference we want.
Great. Thank you so much, Ramita. Thanks everyone for watching, and I'll see you soon.
Thanks for having me.